capes on, spandex tight. Let's talk superhero games. This is a category of game where you're going to see sequels with the highest of hype levels, but also fresh takes that are not just licensed cash grabs. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, 10 upcoming superhero games that excite us. Starting off at number 10, it's Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. Is this a crossover episode? Yes, it is. Obviously. It's a Black Panther versus Captain America versus Hydra story. It's actually T'Challa's grandfather, and Captain America's Captain America. He's old. Skydance brings us a game helmed by Amy Hennig, the creator and director of Uncharted. You got Unreal Engine 5 visuals and some inspiration from the 2010 comic series Captain America / Black Panther, Flags of Our Fathers. Honestly, it looks like a pretty cool game. We don't have an exact date, but it's set to release this year on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. At number 9 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, a kind of sad version of, big turtles fight things. This one's based on the acclaimed IDW comic series. It's an action RPG, and you're the lone surviving turtle in a dystopian New York City. This one's coming to us from Black Forest Games by way of THQ Nordic. It's drawing heavy inspiration from, I think, the God of War type action RPG, which is not quite Dark Souls, but certainly not quite Devil May Cry. It's the slower, leans towards Souls, but not that kind of game exactly thing. And I think that would work very well for the idea that it's got. These sort of contemplative, emotional stories in which you need good gameplay as well. That's kind of like a great template for that. So this game was actually officially revealed way back in August of 2023, but we don't have a specific release date. It's just a really good-looking, very different Ninja Turtles game. It just tosses out the whole Saturday morning cartoon vibe. It's like Teenage Mutant Ninja John Wick, I guess. It's coming to the PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. At number 8 is Dispatch, a world where superheroes aren't just battling villains, but they're also navigating the treacherous waters of office politics. So this comes to us from Ad Hoc Studio, an offshoot of Telltale Games. It's people who used to work there, people who worked on The Wolf Among Us and Tales from the Borderlands, people who know what they're doing with narrative-driven games, people who make the narrative-driven games that people like. Lord knows there's more than a few narrative-driven games that people are just like, this isn't really a game. These are the guys that make those types of games and make them so that people don't get mad. Dispatch is basically a story where you are Mecha Man and your mech suit is out of commission. So instead of saving the world directly, you have to manage a team from misfit heroes from the dispatch center, the superhero dispatch center. It's an interesting idea, I would say. And it combines elements of strategic management to what you might know of the Telltale Games paradigm. And I think that's a good idea because I think Telltale is one of those studios that really created something interesting. It's just, it needed to go somewhere. And between mismanagement and basically making the same game with a bunch of different templates, I like the idea they're adding a different mechanic in. Management also not what I would expect, which also intrigues me. So this is basically like a less glamorous, yet probably equally important aspect of being a hero. And also we have to imagine that because Mecha Man is normally a hero, his suit's just out of commission. There's some element of the story that will take you into Mecha Man's suit. Dispatch is set to release this year on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. I would guess you'll probably see it on Switch too, because again, this type of a game is usually not on the cutting edge, but we don't really know either. And number 7 is Marvel's Iron Man. Tony Stark finally gets the solo spotlight after years of playing second fiddle in ensemble casts and forgettable tie-in games. Motive, known for Star Wars Squadrons and the Dead Space remake, is who is making this game. EA bringing us a solo AAA Marvel's Iron Man. It's an Unreal Engine 5 game, has an original story, and honestly, my hope is that the Dead Space remake kind of informs what we might be getting here. if you think about it, there's actually a fair amount of similarity between Isaac Clarke's suit and the Iron Man suit. However, we also have to think about the fact that these are two types of things that would be paced incredibly differently. Iron Man, of course, would be high octane, high action, or at least I would assume so. And honestly, I think there's a lot of potential here. So let's keep an eye on it. It's announced for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Don't have a date yet, though. Moving on to number 6, it's The Wolf Among Us 2. So Telltale Games, which is now kind of the same company, kind of a different company, and Ad Hoc Studio, the studio we were just talking about with Dispatch, they're working together on The Wolf Among Us 2, which is an IP of Telltale Games, which is based on a comic, but most would argue that the best telling of it was the first game. Or, I mean, maybe that's a controversial statement, I might be wrong, but in my experience, people prefer the game, and guess what? The original voice actors are coming back to this game, which is great, because it's probably the Telltale game that people most remember fondly and say, like, that's really the quintessential Telltale game. It's kind of a superhero game, kind of a dystopian noir city with magical beings. But if you think about it, magical beings and superheroes, pretty much the same thing. They certainly act like the same thing in this story anyways. This was gonna come out a couple of years ago, but Telltale has put forward a commitment to avoid crunch as well as upgrade to Unreal Engine 5. We don't have exactly a when, but we do have that they are saying it's this year. It's coming to the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and PC. Moving on to number 5, it's the Superhero Simulator. If you ever wanted to suplex a villain into low Earth orbit without the burden of a tragic backstory, Superhero Simulator is here to make your weird dream a reality. This chaotic-looking sandbox with fully destructible everything, where you can mix powers like you're crafting a smoothie made of pure mayhem. I don't know. You start as a regular civilian, but you unlock powers like fireballs, lasers, super strength, telekinesis, blah, blah, blah. And you can combine that stuff to create your own crime fighting style. Kind of looks like Prototype with a hint of totally accurate battle simulator. Like you have a whole bunch of physics-based gameplay stuff that makes your powers look like really cool, but they also interact with the environment in what has to be very cool, catastrophic, and often hilarious ways. I don't know. This is one that I've actually been paying attention to for a while. It looks really cool. It's going to land in early access later in the year on PC. My hope is that this is a hidden gem and rocks everybody's socks off. And number 4 is Arcane doing Blade. Okay, so we're all very, very sad about Arcane Austin being closed. But we're all very, very happy that Arcane Lyon is still in existence because they're the original Arcane. They did Dishonored, and although Prey is arguably the best Arcane game and the studio that was most heavily involved in making that is no more, Dishonored is Arcane. And a Blade game made by Arcane is what Redfall probably should have been. In fact, in a lot of ways, seeing this is probably seeing what they should have been allowed to do with a vampire-themed game. There is a difference here. Marvel's Blade is going to shift to third person, but I have a feeling that is a decision to make it more appealing. I have a feeling it's still very much going to be an immersive sim because I think that they have learned their lesson, Microsoft that is, in terms of allowing Arcane to do what Arcane does. Or at least I hope they have. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe I'm projecting. I don't know. I hope. We don't have any word on a PlayStation release, but given the evolving landscape on platform exclusivity, probably keep an eye on it. But we do know the game is coming to Xbox Series and PC. We do not know exactly when, though. Moving on to number 3, it's EA's Black Panther. Another Black Panther game where you're not playing as Black Panther T'Challa. In fact, this one goes into the future, whereas the Captain America one goes into the past with his grandfather being the Black Panther. Here is the next Black Panther, and apparently it's going to be an open-world action-adventure game. Now, open-world Wakanda is actually a pretty appealing idea. Wakanda's a very interesting place. I know there's a lot of things to pick apart regarding how the movies were made, but there's no denying that the setting itself is extremely different, and yet in certain ways very similar to Western society. And honestly, I think it would be a really good setting for an open world game. I think that's what we're looking at. They haven't really confirmed anything, though, so fingers are crossed. There's no confirmed release date, but we're probably seeing it on any console that it'll work on in PC. We really don't have a lot of information here other than Cliffhanger Games is the developer. It's a new studio that EA owns. Again, could be great. And number 2 is Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Basically, if the Marvel Universe collided with a retro arcade machine, developed by Tribute Games and published by Dotemu. You may recognize both those names if you've played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. And this is a side-scrolling beat-em-up along those lines, which, yes, thank you. Absolutely. You're going to be going from New York City to the Negative Zone. You're going to be playing as Spider-Man, Wolverine, Captain America, Storm, Venom. I mean, it is a really cool looking game, and they've added in this tag team system so you can switch between heroes mid-battle. It looks super fun. I am a sucker for this kind of game, particularly ones that are hearkening back to older ones like the X-Men arcade game, which is something I think about at least a couple times a month. Marvel Cosmic Invasion is scheduled for release sometime this year on the PlayStations, the Xboxes, Nintendo Switch, and PC. And finally, at number 1, it's Marvel's Wolverine. Coming to us by Insomniac, the same guys who did the Fantastic Spider-Man games that we're all raving about all the time. Even when we're complaining about certain aspects of them, we still love the games. This was one that was revealed back in 2021 at their PlayStation Showcase. There's some indications this is going to be a globe-trotting game, as honestly Wolverine stories tend to be. He's often chasing somebody all around the place, ends up in Canada 90% of the time for whatever reason. But this one is apparently going to be a mature game with a very gritty tone. It's going to delve deep into Logan's character. It's kind of been in a bit of the development hell with a few different creative directors going through, and it's been a little bit touch and go, or at least it looks like it has been. What we've seen of it looks great. We're all really hoping that it borrows a lot from that X-Men Origins Wolverine game, which was a licensed game of probably the most god-awful Wolverine-oriented movie made. But man, was it a fun game. If you were to take what was accomplished in the gameplay of that game and match it with the sort of polish and gravitas of an Insomniac game, that would be my ideal Marvel's Wolverine. We'll, of course, see if that's the case when it lands on PlayStation 5, whenever it lands. We do, of course, have some bonus games for you here. Firstly, we're talking about Ship of Heroes, a space MMO, where you are a superhero or several superheroes. I don't know. You're part of a team of superheroes, I guess, where you're going to defend a futuristic city on a giant spaceship. It's kind of City of Heroes meets Star Trek Online, where you build a hero, choose your powers, and punch evil across the cosmos. Seems like an interesting idea. It's been building a niche community since its alpha days. In some ways, it kind of looks like if Second Life was a superhero game, but there's a lot more actual objectives in it than that. This one's supposedly coming out pretty soon. It has a Q2 date for this year. I don't know if it's going to make that, but we'll see. Then there's Black Stigma, a Korean-developed indie game with a dystopian city where you're a resistance member in this anime-inspired Devil May Cry / My Hero Academia thing. I don't know, it looks totally nuts. It's got a crazy combat system. We don't have a date for this one, but it doesn't look like we're going to be seeing this in early access. Seems like it's just going to come out, which would be nice. Then there's Genesis, a new prequel to Undefeated, that crazy game where you could blast buildings and punch tanks into orbit. This one's going to give some story-driven missions, some open-world chaos, and more polished superhero powers. It's still the power fantasy of some YouTube animator, but with more polish and plot. And finally, MIGHTREYA. Basically, if Genshin Impact and Dragon Ball Z had a baby. Basically, anime-style superhero, divine energy, interdimensional threats, craziness, third-person, visually slick, combat-focused stuff that, I don't know, it looks really cool. I don't know what the hell it's about. I'm not sure if I understand what it's about, and I kind of don't care. Like, it's kind of got Jet Set Radio vibes in a weird way. It's a little more extreme, obviously, but man, it looks cool. This one doesn't have a date, but it is announced for PC, and we'll be paying attention. That is all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think.